5 a.m.
Well, hello everyone. Randy Turpin here. Welcome today to 5 a.m., the 5 a.m. podcast. Today we're going to be dealing with a topic related to the sanctity of human life. And we're very blessed to have in a conversation with us today Father Bill Cremers, Associate Pastor of St. Patrick Catholic Church, Fremont, Nebraska. Father Bill, welcome.
Hey, hello, Randy. Very good to be with you.
Yeah, we met, goodness, what's it been now? Has it been 3 years?
Oh, almost 3 years. Yeah. I mean, starting, I guess, August 2022. So with me and him.
Father Bill and I met through Global Awakening Theological Seminary. I've mentioned that seminary before here on the podcast. That's the seminary founded by Randy Clark. And I just have to say, I'm living in the golden era of my life right now. I am enjoying being connected with that ministry and with our seminary so much, working with guys and gals like you, Father Bill, and with you and your whole dissertation process. It's just been wonderful. And the reason I wanted to talk with you today, you recently had the opportunity to participate in the March for Life, I believe, in Washington, D.C. That's an event I've always wanted to participate in, but never have. And I just want you to tell us about that and what that was like and what the status is right now of the whole pro-life movement and what we should be doing. That you just take it. I don't mind if I don't say another word. I want to hear what you have to say.
Okay, well, you can certainly guide me along, but yeah, no, it's been a great blessing just first to be with you, with you as my mentor and my classmates' mentor throughout these past 3 years. Doing the Doctorate of Ministry program with Global, and of course, the whole story of just being connected with Global in and of itself is powerful. Just myself as a Catholic priest, and just seeing this great wave of the Holy Spirit throughout our whole church, and then also me being welcomed in so many ways, and just the conversation, dialogue, and the unity that's coming forth, that God's bringing forth in His church.
Yeah, and it's not just a unity for the sake of unity. It's truly a unity centered in Jesus Christ and what we have in common with Him. And it's, yeah.
Yeah, most certainly in that work of unity in the Spirit. And I would say that the pro-life movement is another tremendous source of that unity within Christians, within all of us, to see the dignity of all life. Maybe unfortunately not necessarily every church in this way, just as maybe not every church would be open to these works of the Spirit, but yet a powerful unity that I can go to the March for Life as a Catholic priest and see Baptists, see Lutherans, see Seventh-day Adventists, see, and even maybe those not of faith, there's Atheists for Life. There's all these other groups that are present to be able to just come around this common cause that, yes, we believe in the sanctity of human life. We believe in the dignity of every individual that is given from that moment of conception, that this life is a gift. So this was my 8th time attending the National March for Life. And every time, well, nearly as brief time, has been with a group of students. It's very common for high school students, especially, I mean, you think Catholic high schools throughout the country, sending students here, and we make the full bus ride about 23 hours out to DC. And it's definitely, I mean, the attendance has decreased. I mean, well, of course, COVID, of course, threw everything for a tailspin, but also too with the overturning of Roe versus Wade. There's maybe been a lesser emphasis on the national march because of the sense, okay, this original battle that's been facing has been accomplished, and now it's more on the state level. And yet, at the same time, there's still need to be the emphasis on the national level, because we see within our legislature, we see within the Supreme Court, there's continued laws that are trying to be passed on either end and trying to say, how do we protect life at every level? How do we protect this grace? And for us to be in Washington, D.C. in such large numbers does make a difference. We hear that from government leaders. We hear that from people in the town, that when there's still thousands of people gathered for this, that it makes an impact on the city, makes an impact on the area of DC, and also then that resonates throughout the country, as we see on the news. But most importantly, I think, and a big reason, of course, why I'm passionate in going is being able to guide our youth, guide our students in this experience.
Yeah, with the overturning of Roe v. Wade, it's, hey, yeah, that was a big deal. That was an answer to a lot of prayer and all of that. But it is important to keep a redemptive presence in DC itself and on the national level, because darkness has a way of creeping back in strange ways, you know. And let's just keep the light on.
Yeah, because that prayer makes a difference when you have those thousands of people praying. That does make a difference. We're comforting the streets of DC and the streets of our capital and of our Supreme Courts with the name of Jesus and with everything that's given in that unity of faith.
Well, hey, just describe for me what actually happens in a March for Life. I mean, you gather on the mall. Do you actually march from one point to another? I mean, what does that even look like?
Yeah, so it begins on the National Mall, fairly close to the Washington Monument. They have a stage set up, and then they have a variety of speakers. They have some music that takes place, and those speakers, it ranges. It includes politicians, includes government leaders. Of course, this year it made headlines that Vice President J.D. Vance came and spoke at the rally. And then President Trump, he's attended the rally once in the past, but this year he just sent a video message since he was traveling to see from the damage of the storms and the fires. Having the politicians at the March for Life, it doesn't necessarily mean that I or anyone else there necessarily has to agree with everything that politician holds, but yet showing that there's this common emphasis on this great emphasis on life and an emphasis on the unborn. And so having some other politicians, having some different leaders, there's Catholic bishops who lead prayers, there's Orthodox priests who lead prayers, there's Protestant leaders who lead prayers as well. Of course, we're trying to keep our group of 50 students, trying to keep them all together as much as we can and not get separated as much as we can, even though that always tends to happen. Then there's the actual march itself. So taking place, again, where the Washington Monument is, it go about a mile, march down Constitution Avenue, and then march toward the Capitol building. And then the Capitol building takes up, and then take a left turn toward the Supreme Court building. The joy, there's the cheers. And of course, being from Nebraska, one of the cheers we use is, "Who's on the march? Nebraska's on the march." And when Nebraska's on the march, we're going to defend life. Singing some different prayers, whether it be maybe Catholic groups singing some of the traditional prayers in Latin, or there's one group, the Tradition Family Protection, can't remember the exact name, but they have an Irish or a Celtic band with bagpipes and such. And even just silence. I mean, people may just be marching in silence. You'll see a lot of signs with powerful messages. But it's just a really powerful witness. And my favorite part too is we were going up Capitol Hill, which my students always have the joke, because it's that point I become a bill on Capitol Hill, as the schoolhouse route says. But you start at the base of the hill and you just look up and you see people all the way to the top of the hill. And then as you're marching up the hill, you get to the top and you look back and see people all the way down, several blocks down. Reminding my students of that later on. It's like, hey, you're not alone in what you believe, and even the dignity of your life, because we're marching for the lives of the unborn, for the lives of the vulnerable. And we're also marching for our own lives. So think about how often, especially in today's generation, especially today's youth, how easy it is, the depression, the anxiety, the not seeing the value of life. But yet, when you're in a crowd like this, you say, no, I'm not alone. My life has purpose, has meaning. I think that's what the core of the pro-life movement to say from the very beginning of life, that life is sacred, that it's unique, that it's a gift. And for us, even in the most difficult of circumstances, to see that gift, see that unique person that's there, not to throw that person away, not to think of the circumstances, oh, this person will never amount to something. Because we have countless stories of leaders today, religious leaders, politicians, lawyers, doctors, mothers, fathers, who were nearly thrown away and who nearly experienced that. I know even of several priests that were adopted and came from those situations, even a couple of priests where their mothers went to the abortion clinics, but yet met the sidewalk counselors, met those praying. And because their son was conceived, and that son is now a leader in the church. And you can see that in so many different ways, the dignity of that life.
Wow. I've been involved in one way or another for about 41 years. I did the math. And and the reason I'm bringing it up right now, the first organization I was connected with, I was an associate pastor at the time, and I was an advisor to a Christian crisis pregnancy center. It was called Mother and Unborn Baby Care. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up, I mean, some people can have the impression that this is all this very negative thing against people who have had abortions and people who do abortions, and this very negative assault. And sometimes they're surprised when they meet people like you, even people like me, and realize this is a much more positive movement than people realize. And it's as much about that woman in her situation of not wanting to do it, not knowing what to do with that pregnancy. There's so much compassion in the body of Christ. There's so much help available. There's so much, there are options other than having to abort that child. And there's lots of support available. And sometimes that's not elevated enough, I don't think. In the secular media and all of that, we live in a very secularized society where if you don't have secular basically implies something that's apart from God, that doesn't include God in it. If you don't have a God, you don't have a creator. If you don't have a creator, you don't really have a purpose. But we do have a purpose because we do have a creator and we do have a God. And I think that purpose for both mother and child is something that we in this whole movement are about. I'm just rambling on and on about that, but
yeah, we see that. I mean, the care of the mother and the father and the child. So as many people said, love them both, and I always want to include the father in that because the father has that love and that responsibility. And we know the need. So on both ends. So one, helping the mothers in need. That's where the pregnancy resource centers are so important. That's where we see homes for pregnant mothers. I know in Omaha, there are a couple of homes now where mothers who are in crisis, with few resources, they live in community with people who can care for them, provide those things, and provide the teaching to help them succeed from there on out. You see the resources, we see the walking with that, and we see the accompaniment that comes from that. So I think they're highlighting those centers, highlighting those different things, those ministries throughout the country, which are countless, and all the churches that have risen up and continue to rise up, and the individuals who provide for that. As you said, the care is out there, their resources are out there. And two, a large part of the pro-life movement is bringing healing for those who have suffered the trauma of abortion, who have gone through that experience. So I think instead of trying to cover it up or trying to make it a place of pride, many just find themselves saying, okay, I have this regret, but I'm not sure what to do with it. It's something that happened, but we realize that's often a spiritual wound within them, and a wound that Satan often exploits to no end. So to bring the healing, bring the forgiveness, that's where that prayer with them comes so much in handy. That's where the prayer of inner healing, the prayer of walking with them. I know different ministries that offer retreats or offer direction or offer counseling, and just again, that accompaniment, helping them not feel shame, because I think in many ways it's the lack of knowledge, the lack of maybe the time of resources in the past, or lack of knowledge that those resources are available, that unfortunately can get so covered up in our society. So it's show the forgiveness of God. Show, yes, God forgives you. It's your child forgives you, and that you can in that light.
Wow, that's quite a thought there. I've seen, of course, I've been a pastor in most of my journey. I've seen so many women and men, the the daddies of those little babies, that were aborted, that receive healing. I mean, truly healed, and it's just a remarkable thing, when you see the great grace of God. I mean, sometimes I don't want to get too much into the sticky stuff here. I know there's a lot of controversial things we get into, but oh wow! I mean, sometimes people think it's just an automatic. Well, this is a rape. There should be an abortion here, but wow, talk to some of these rape conceived people who are just beautiful people, and some of the women that have gone through rape, how they're so glad that they kept that child. I don't know. You may not want to get into that too much, but
Yeah, I don't recall particular conversations with people regarding that, but just knowing in general, I mean, you hear some of the testimonies of women who've done that or those who have been conceived, and they say that there's the beauty, there's redemption that comes. And that becomes, I think, when we talk with those and when that's presented as the common argument, well, what about the conception and wake? Would that just be a memory to that woman? And for us to fully sympathize, say, yeah, that's a horrible thing that anyone would endure that rape or that trauma or assault. And what we want is not to try to heal a wrong by another thing that could end up as another regret, but to say, how can we accompany and how can that bring redemption, bring something beautiful out of something that's so long? That's what the power of the cross does. That's what Jesus does and on the cross, making the most absolute worst thing humanity could done into something even more beautiful than could be imagined.
Well, what should we now be doing? I mean, I think that after Roe v. Wade was overturned, a lot of people might have just thought, okay, that's over. It's not really over. It's just been pushed to the state level. And, but, on the local level, right where our listeners are living right now, what can they do? What should they be doing? What do you think?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, prayer. The prayer for ourselves, prayer for our states, prayer for our nation, prayer for those who are considering this or have gone through this. Prayer for redemption, for forgiveness, and for God's protection. And then also the providing of the care for mothers and fathers in need, supporting the pregnancy resource centers and getting the word out there that there is help, that there is this resource available, that you want to accompany those most in need. And then also to continue establishing those legal protections for life. And I think what we see in the state level is especially the battle over state constitutions, those amendments that, unfortunately, in several states, those amendments that have passed that have prohibited any limiting of abortion. And we had that battle very much real in Nebraska last year, where we had the amendments wanting to establish constitutional right of abortion to viability. It was very vaguely written and it could have been interpreted in all sorts of different ways. And so what some of our leaders had the idea to do is to propose a different constitutional amendment that said that babies would be protected in the second and third trimester, except for the exception of the woman's health or rape. Now, we know that's not a perfect amendment. That's not what we're ultimately aiming for. And yet at the same time, the analogy I would use is like football, right? Okay, we want to advance all the fields to the touchdown, but sometimes maybe just getting the next first down is exactly what we need, right? To not try to throw the Hail Mary, but let's get to the next yard. So by establishing that legal protection and even just having that on the ballot helps people to see, oh wait, this is the other one. The pro-choice is so extreme. They're not wanting to choose that. And that tactic worked. The pro-life amendment was passed, so protecting babies there. And we're seeing as we stand for what Jesus has given us and for morality and our faith, that this is what's going to bring that conversion of culture and that revival that we're all praying for.
Yes. That's a good note to close this out on. Father Bill, I want to thank you for joining us here and being a part of this whole topic. This conversation is enlightening, informative, And for our listeners, I want to encourage you to check the description to this episode. I'm going to place at least one link there that will be where you can go online and look at resources on how you can get involved on a local level right where you are. Okay, folks, I guess that wraps it up. Unless, Father Bill, you have anything else you want to say?
No, thank you so much, Doctor. So good to be with you.
Okay, super. Well, folks, that wraps it up for today. Join us next time. We'll continue to bring other discussions, conversations related to how we're to live in this point in God's timeline, the already but not yet kingdom of heaven. Let's just keep living like a new day is dawning, because it truly is. God bless you.